Jackie Chan, one of action cinema's most iconic stars, quietly walked into a luxury car dealership. For him, it was just another ordinary day, but what was about to happen would change everything. And when the truth about him was revealed, the consequences would not only be unexpected, they would be unforgettable. Before we continue with this story, let us know in the comments where you're watching it from. If you like stories like this, subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow we'll have another special story for you. It was a quiet morning in Beijing. The sun illuminated the city, and the light wind blew through the busy streets. Jackie Chan walked serenely, wearing a sports jacket and casual pants, something that reflected his simple, practical style. Even with his worldwide fame, he never cared about status. Along the way, a few people recognized him. He would reciprocate with a discreet smile, wave to a fan there, exchange a few warm words with another there. His charisma has always been one of his trademarks. During his walk, he paused at a small traditional cafe, a place he had frequented for years and where he was treated as just another customer. The aroma of freshly brewed tea filled the air. "Good morning, Mr. Chan." "The usual?" asked the owner, a middle-aged man who already knew him well. "Yes, please," Jackie replied with a slight smile. As he waited for his drink, his mind wandered. There was something he had been looking for over the last few months. It wasn't a passing wish, but an idea that united his passion for classic cars and his desire to do something meaningful. Perhaps a rare model, something he could restore and donate to an institution or even auction off for a good cause. Cup in hand, he resumed his walk. His destination was already set, an exclusive dealership, famous for offering rare cars with a high collectible value. Jackie hoped to find what he was looking for there. As he walked through the glass doors, he was greeted by an environment that exuded luxury. The shiny floor reflected the impeccably aligned vehicles. The distinctive smell of new leather hung in the air, while salesmen circulated elegantly among the customers. Jackie, with his characteristic simplicity, went almost unnoticed. Almost. A few curious glances began to turn towards him, followed by discreet whispers. Heedless of the whispers, he kept his focus on what really mattered. His eyes landed on a classic car from a legendary era of motorsport. Its detailed lines, gleaming paintwork and nostalgic aura immediately caught his eye. Determined, Jackie approached a salesman, who was distracted by his cell phone. "Excuse me, could you tell me more about this model?" he asked in his calm, polite voice. The clerk looked up quickly, but didn't show much interest. "Just a moment, I'll call someone," he said coldly and walked away without even looking back. Jackie watched the man walk away. His expression remained serene, but a slight frown indicated a discreet annoyance. Still, he remained where he was, admiring every detail of the car that fascinated him so much. Meanwhile, the atmosphere around him was beginning to change. It wasn't explicit, but the appraising glances and whispers exchanged between the employees made it clear that a judgment was being made. "Does he know where he is?" muttered one of the salespeople. "You don't look like someone who's going to buy anything here," replied another, in a mocking tone. Jackie heard the comments, but chose to ignore them. She put her hand to her chin, thinking. It wasn't the first time he had faced this kind of situation. He stood in front of the vehicle, waiting. It was then that he noticed someone approaching. It was the store manager. His firm posture and appraising gaze created a silent tension in the room. He stopped right in front of Jackie, examining him from head to toe, as if trying to understand what this simple man was doing there. With a slight smile, he commented, "This model is exclusive, very difficult to find." The tone of his voice didn't sound like a presentation of the car, but rather a test. "Exactly what I'm looking for," Jackie replied calmly, without losing her polite posture. The manager crossed his arms, looking at him with a mixture of doubt and disdain. "Well, I hope you're really prepared. This car isn't for everyone." Jackie held his gaze. He didn't say anything, just smiled discreetly. But his eyes didn't stray a single millimeter. The manager, realizing that Jackie wouldn't react as expected, took a step back. What no one there knew was that Jackie Chan was not just any customer. He wasn't just another casual visitor. He was one of the most respected and admired actors in the world. His career wasn't built on money and ostentation, but on hard work, humility, and overcoming obstacles. And when the truth came out, the consequences would not only be unexpected, they would be unforgettable. Jackie stood next to the classic car, observing every detail with genuine admiration. The texture of the polished metal, the impeccable shine of the paintwork, and the timeless design aroused a real charm in him. This was exactly the kind of piece he was looking for, a car with history and sentimental value, not just a status symbol. But the atmosphere around him seemed charged, as if the environment itself rejected his presence there. Stares and discreet whispers spread through the showroom, creating a growing sense of unease. A few minutes passed before the store manager finally appeared. His name was Richard, a man with a rigid posture and a calculating gaze. He walked up to Jackie with firm steps, each movement clearly rehearsed to demonstrate his authority. When he was a few meters away, he crossed his arms and gave a smile that looked more like a provocation than courtesy. "Interested in that model?" asked Richard, his voice laced with irony. "Yes, it's an impressive car. I'd like to know more about it," Jackie replied calmly, keeping his composure. Richard looked him up and down, intentionally lingering on the details of the simple clothes Jackie was wearing. His gaze showed surprise and at the same time disbelief, as if he couldn't believe that someone dressed like that could even consider buying such a car. "Interesting," muttered Richard, with obvious sarcasm. "This is one of our most exclusive models. Very few people get the chance to see one of these in person, let alone own one." Jackie stood her ground, but the tension in the room was already palpable. The manager took a small step to the side, as if to block any attempt by him to get even closer to the car. "Do you realize that this vehicle costs more than some mansions in Hong Kong?" Richard continued, his tone now even sharper. "Not just anyone can drive it home." Jackie frowned slightly, but her posture remained unwavering. "I know. That's why I'm here, interested. Could you tell me more about him?" she insisted, trying to ignore the manager's hostility. Richard let out a dry laugh, without any trace of genuine humor. He crossed his arms again and leaned forward slightly, as if to intimidate him. "Look, I'm not sure how to put this more clearly, but," he paused dramatically, looking Jackie in the eye. "Models like this attract a specific type of client. People who really understand what they're buying." He then cast an appraising glance at Jackie's clothes and added, with an even more acid tone, "And with all due respect, you don't seem to fit that profile." Jackie took a deep breath, trying to contain the discomfort that was now starting to turn into something else. He tilted his head slightly, as if to make sure he had heard correctly. "Profile?" he repeated, his voice neutral. "Yes, profile," emphasized Richard. "Our cars are not just vehicles. They are symbols of status, success, exclusivity." He paused before finishing, gesturing theatrically in Jackie's direction. "And frankly, none of that seems to go very well with this." The silence that followed was deafening. Some employees discreetly stopped what they were doing to observe the scene, while others pretended not to be paying attention. Jackie didn't respond immediately. He just stared long and hard at Richard, as if analyzing his words. "Curious," he said, his voice still calm, but now laden with firmness. "You seem to know a lot about people just by what they wear." The manager narrowed his eyes, clearly annoyed by the answer. He then took a step forward, invading Jackie's personal space, and lowered his tone, but without losing his acidity. "Listen here, buddy," began Richard, loading each word with contempt. "I see people like you all the time. They come in, look at the cars, dream a bit, and then leave without spending a penny." He paused and cast a cold glance at Jackie before concluding, "If you've come here to play make-believe, please don't waste any more of my time." Jackie didn't back down. His posture, which had previously been merely patient, now conveyed something different. A determined calm settled in her gaze. "What if I'm not here to dream?" she asked simply. Richard let out a short laugh, shaking his head as if he thought the idea was absurd. "Then I'd say you're in the wrong place," he said, in an icy tone. "Because this space is for those who can afford it. For those who have something to prove." He then looked directly at Jackie and added, "And frankly, you don't seem to have either." The atmosphere seemed stifling now. The curious stares of staff and customers hung in the air, adding to the tension. Jackie kept her gaze fixed on the manager for a few more seconds. Her discomfort was gone. Now it was something else. He smiled slightly, not with joy, but with understanding. Now he knew exactly the kind of person he had in front of him. "Funny. I always thought that true luxury was treating people with respect. Perhaps you should give that some thought," said Jackie, her voice calm but sharp as a blade. Jackie remained unfazed by the manager, who was now emanating anger and contempt with every word. The tension in the showroom was palpable, and both staff and customers could no longer disguise the fact that they were paying attention to the discussion. Richard, increasingly irritated, raised his voice, as if he needed to win this exchange of words to reaffirm his authority. "People like you only come here to waste our time," he snapped, his voice full of sarcasm. "This isn't a sightseeing tour, and it's definitely not a place for dreamers with worn-out clothes and empty pockets." Jackie tilted her head slightly, watching Richard with a serene but penetrating gaze. She took a deep breath before replying, choosing each word precisely. "Interesting. You talk so much about wasting time, but you're so busy judging others by their appearance that you forget what really matters." Richard narrowed his eyes, his face now flushed with restrained anger. He then took another step forward, invading even more of Jackie's personal space. "Oh, I know very well what matters," Richard shouted, his voice laced with venom. "And certainly not moral lessons from someone who thinks he can walk in here as if he belongs here." He paused, his fierce, contemptuous gaze fixed on Jackie. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Jackie didn't flinch. She remained motionless, her eyes locked on Richard's. And that only made the manager lose control for good. "You don't tell me what to do," shouted Richard, his face distorted with fury. Then, in an impulsive act, he raised his fist, as if to intimidate Jackie, or even attack him. But Jackie reacted instinctively. With the calmness of someone who has spent his life training in martial arts, he raised his hand and held Richard's fist in the air. The movement was precise, controlled, without any aggression. It was a gesture of restraint, not retaliation. For an instant, time seemed to freeze. Richard was paralyzed, shocked to see his blow parried with such ease. The showroom was plunged into absolute silence. All eyes were fixed on the scene unfolding before them. Jackie stared directly at Richard. Her expression wasn't one of anger, but there was an almost disconcerting firmness in her gaze. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a different weight. "The anger you feel has nothing to do with me. Maybe it's time to look inwards and deal with it, before you take it out on others." And then he released Richard's grip as calmly as he had held it. The manager stepped back, visibly shaken, but tried to disguise his insecurity by adjusting his posture and straightening his suit. Jackie straightened his jacket, took a step back and cast one last glance at Richard. Respect costs nothing. But for some people, it seems to be harder to find than any car in this store. Without waiting for an answer, he turned and started walking towards the exit. The showroom remained silent, interrupted only by the echo of his firm footsteps on the polished floor. Staff and customers stood still, some even holding their breath, as if they still couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. But then, something caught Jackie's eye. In a corner of the store, a young man was holding a cell phone. He had recorded not only the final confrontation, but apparently the whole scene from the beginning. Jackie paused briefly, meeting the gaze of the young man, who looked nervous but determined. The young man gave a slight nod, a silent gesture of solidarity. Jackie reciprocated with a discreet, almost imperceptible smile, before walking through the glass doors and disappearing into the bright Hong Kong sunshine. Inside the dealership, Richard tried to regain his composure, but the silence around him and the disapproving looks from the staff made it clear that something had changed. The video recorded by the young man would not remain hidden for long. And when the world saw what had happened in that showroom, the consequences would be devastating and inevitable. By the next morning, the story was everywhere. The video from the dealership was posted on social media by the young man who had filmed the whole thing unnoticed. Within hours, the images went viral. Thousands of people shared the footage, outraged at the disrespectful way Jackie Chan had been treated. The contrast was shocking. A man recognized worldwide for his humility and generosity, being belittled by someone so arrogant. The video began with Richard ignoring Jackie and making disrespectful comments, but the most impactful moment was unquestionable, the exact instant when the manager tried to attack Jackie Chan, and had his blow interrupted with disturbing calm. Jackie Chan's phrase, "Respect costs nothing," but for some people it seems to be rarer than any car here, instantly went viral. In a matter of hours, it was on social media, in posts, memes, and even in the headlines of major newspapers. On the internet, the comments were relentless. "Small Blue Diamond, how does anyone have the nerve to treat Jackie Chan like that? He is literally one of the most humble and generous people in cinema." "Small Blue Diamond, This manager clearly thinks he's superior. Shame on the dealership. Small Blue Diamond Jackie, as always, dealing with arrogant people with class. A real example. Small Blue Diamond, let this be a lesson. Never underestimate someone just because of their looks. Entertainment blogs and news sites quickly embraced the story. But this wasn't just some random customer being disrespected. It was one of the most respected actors in the world. The public not only defended Jackie, but also criticized the elitist and prejudiced practices common in luxury stores like that dealership. Inside the store, the impact was immediate and devastating. The dealership's social networks were flooded with negative comments demanding explanations and apologies. Outraged customers announced boycotts and demanded the manager's resignation. Richard, in a desperate act, tried to justify his actions, but each statement only made the situation worse. His explanations were empty, without a shred of genuine regret. It was a misunderstanding. I didn't recognize Mr. Chan immediately, and my behavior was misinterpreted. But no one believed me. The collective indignation was relentless. Employees of the dealership, fearing for their jobs, began to speak anonymously to the press, revealing details about Richard and his behavior on site. He had always treated people like this. It didn't matter if they were rich or not. He thought he was better than everyone else, revealed one of the employees. This statement only inflamed the public's anger even more. The dealership, once a meeting place for select customers, was now losing buyers in droves. Sales plummeted. No one wanted to be associated with a place whose reputation had been irreparably tarnished. While the world was abuzz with the scandal, Jackie Chan remained silent. He was never the type to seek revenge or fuel conflicts. In the coziness of his home, surrounded by the simplicity that had always defined his life, he reflected on what had happened. Jackie knew that this situation was not an isolated case. Prejudice based on appearance, social status, or financial power happened all the time. And he didn't want this experience to be just another passing scandal. He decided to turn it into something bigger. Jackie shared his thoughts with a close friend. The video is circulating, and people are reacting. But I don't want it to end up as just another scandal. He paused, reflecting before continuing. I want to turn this into something that really inspires change. And how do you intend to do that? Asked his friend. Jackie smiled slightly. A discreet smile, but one full of determination. I'm going to deal with it my way. He knew he had to go back to that dealership. But not to fight back. But to turn that situation into a powerful lesson. As he hung up the phone, his thoughts returned to the car. He still wanted it. That vehicle now symbolized something greater. It was a symbol of what could be done from that experience. I need to go back there, he thought. But the big question was, what would he do when he got back? Days later, the video was still dominating social media and the news. Jackie Chan's name was one of the most talked about topics. But, as always, he kept out of the spotlight and avoided any public statements. Still, he knew that this story could not end without a meaningful resolution. That afternoon, Jackie returned to the same dealership. No fuss. No security guards. No cameras following him. Just him, and his calm, serene presence. This time, however, something was different. Everyone there knew exactly who he was. The employees froze as soon as he crossed the threshold. Some looked nervous. Others, embarrassed. Behind the counter, Richard was visibly tense. His face was pale. And his once confident posture now looked hesitant. The dealership, once full of customers and movement, now seemed strangely empty. A direct reflection of the massive boycott it was facing. Jackie walked over to the car that had caught her eye at the beginning. She ran her hand gently over the bodywork, feeling its texture, examining the details. Just as she had done the first time. But now the tension wasn't in the car. It was in the atmosphere. He felt Richard's gaze fixed on him. A look full of fear and barely concealed regret. Finally, the manager plucked up the courage to approach. But his attitude was far from the arrogance he had displayed before. Now he looked smaller, almost defeated. Mr. Chan. Richard began, his voice low and restrained. I want to apologize for what happened. I think we got off on the wrong foot, and I wish we could start again. Perhaps I could show you this model that caught your eye. Jackie turned slowly, her gaze meeting Richard's. The manager swallowed, unable to hold his gaze for long. Start again? Jackie repeated, her voice calm but penetrating. I don't think you understand. The problem here isn't just how you treated me, it's how you treat people. Richard opened his mouth to reply, but no words came out. Jackie took a step back, still holding his gaze. Respect shouldn't be a bargaining chip. It shouldn't be something you offer only to those you think deserve it. She paused before concluding, respect is fundamental. Either you have it or you don't. Richard tried to argue, but Jackie raised her hand slightly, indicating that he should just listen. I came here looking for something special, something that meant something to me. Jackie looked at the car once more. But what I found was something that can't be fixed with a simple apology. He took a deep breath before concluding, that's why I'm not buying this car. At least, not from this dealership. The weight of his words was overwhelming. Richard looked even smaller in front of him. The staff and customers around him remained completely silent, absorbing every sentence Jackie spoke. He then turned to leave. But before he walked through the door, he took one last look at Richard. I hope that's a lesson. He paused briefly before finishing. True luxury is not an exclusive car or an exorbitant price. Jackie looked around the showroom and concluded, true luxury is treating others with dignity. And unfortunately, it seems that this is rarer than any model you have in this store. And with those words, Jackie left the dealership. The silence left behind was deafening. Days later, the video was still circulating on the internet. But now, people weren't just talking about what happened at the dealership. They were discussing how Jackie turned a moment of disrespect into a lesson that went far beyond that event. Once again, he became a symbol of humility and quiet strength. What about the car? Jackie finally bought it. But not at that dealership. He found the same model in a more modest store, where the service valued human connection over ostentation. The owner, a middle-aged man called Sam, was known for treating all customers equally, regardless of who they were. Upon entering the store, Jackie was greeted with a genuine smile. Welcome. How can I help you today? Asked Sam, the owner of the dealership. I'm looking for something special. A car that represents a greater cause. I think you can help me. The interaction was warm, without judgment or prejudice. And in the end, Jackie found exactly what he was looking for. After the purchase, he took a photo alongside Sam and his team, posting it on his social networks with a simple but powerful caption. True luxury is being treated with respect. Thank you for reminding me of that. The post went viral instantly. The new establishment was extolled as an example of how customer service should be. People started visiting the store, attracted by the idea of a place where dignity came first. Jackie's gesture became a symbol. Social media was flooded with personal stories about prejudice, discrimination, and overcoming. Countless campaigns promoting respect and inclusion emerged, encouraging companies to rethink their practices and behaviors. Hashtags such as #RespectIsLuxury and #LearnWithJackie dominated social media. Celebrities, activists, and brands joined the movement, using the moment as an opportunity for reflection. Small Blue Diamond, even luxury car manufacturers have started to adopt more inclusive narratives, fearing a reputation crisis similar to that of the dealership where it all began. Meanwhile, the old dealership continued to pay the price for its mistakes. Richard, the manager, was sacked after a torrent of criticism and the loss of countless customers. The company underwent a major restructuring, but the damage had already been done. The incident became a lesson within the business world, a clear reminder of the importance of respect in customer service. Jackie, for her part, remained true to her principles. I never wanted this to be about me, he said, with his usual humility. This isn't about who I am or what I do. It's about how we choose to treat each other. Jackie continued, respect shouldn't depend on who you are, how much you have, or what you look like. He paused, looking around. It's a basic right. Something everyone deserves. When asked what he had learned from this experience, Jackie smiled slightly before answering. I learned that even difficult times can be opportunities for change. He took a deep breath before concluding, respect costs nothing, but when we give it, we create something that can transform the world. The car Jackie bought became much more than an automobile. It was restored and auctioned off at a charity event, raising millions of dollars for causes that promote equality and inclusion. During the event, Jackie gave a short but unforgettable speech. This car was just an object, until this story happened. He looked at the audience and concluded, Now it carries something much more valuable, the lesson that we all have the power to inspire change. He paused and finished, as long as we are guided by respect. The evening ended with warm applause, not just for Jackie, but for the powerful message he had shared with the world. What began as an episode of prejudice and disrespect had turned into a story of change and inspiration. Jackie proved that, even in the face of injustice, it is possible to act with dignity and turn the negative into something positive. The world moved on. But the lesson remained. Because, at the end of the day, respect is what really defines us. Have you ever experienced a moment when respect, or the lack of it, made all the difference? How would you have reacted in Jackie's place? Let me know in the comments. If this story has touched you, don't leave it here. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message and help spread this thought around the world. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow more inspiring stories about empathy, overcoming and lessons that really matter. Do you want to continue being moved? Click on one of the videos appearing on your screen right now and discover another incredible story that will warm your heart. See you in the next video.